Hi, I'm Chris, N9CVR. In this video, we are going to make lightning. So, joking aside, I bought these lightning arrestors, and they're cheap Amazon specials, but mounted them to this copper plate, and here's where the ground wire is going to come in. But basically, behind these little screws, what happens is there's this little capsule here, and this thing is what's called a gas discharge tube. And let me backtrack a little bit. We probably shouldn't even be calling these lightning arrestors, because they don't arrest lightning. It's more static discharge that's the problem. So basically, these little tubes, there we go, something like that, don't conduct electricity until you get to a certain voltage across the top and the bottom, and then they conduct. And basically the idea is this sits across the shield in the center of your connector, and once you reach some high enough voltage, it'll arc across and short out. Well, what's a high enough voltage? Well, that depends on how much wattage you're running. So for a 100-watt system, we can use some math, and I will stick it up on the screen right about now. And we can see what kind of voltage we have to have in order to be able to transmit at 100 watts without causing, they call this a GDT, gas discharge tube, to start arcing. I did that math, and I discovered that these arc low. So I bought a name brand one. These are made by TDK. So hopefully this one will work a little better, but we're going to test them. So let me do a couple of things here, and we'll get set up, and I'll show you how we test gas discharge tubes. Alright, so here's the game we're going to play. We want these GDTs to be good for 100 watts at 50 ohm impedance. Power equals voltage squared divided by impedance. So therefore voltage would be the square root of the power times the impedance. So that means this GDT is going to be good if it peaks out at 70.7 volts. Now, probably one thing to keep in mind, that's a peak. So actually, let me put the peak here, which means if I were to measure what kind of RMS voltage am I going to have to put in here, we'd go VRMS. That should equal this times 0.707. The reason I care about this number, and let's make it a little prettier, we can use 1 decimal. There we go. The reason we care about this number is because I'm going to be using this AC power supply to put a voltage across here. And by the way, while we're doing this, let's turn the amperage way down. Because, by the way, what happens when too high of a voltage goes across this is it sparks internally, and that actually generates a good amount of heat. And the more current you put through it, the more heat you put through it. So these get really nice and toasty really quick. So let's put the minimum amperage I can. And let's see what this will do. So actually I'm going to call V white and V blue, because I have two different GDTs here, and we'll see what they do and which one is going to work for our purposes. So now it does get a little fun trying to connect the GDT. Oh, there we go. And actually make contact and all that. Something like that. Okay. Now what we do is we make sure the power supply is at 0, we turn it on, and we start cranking up the voltage. We'll see what happens. Oh, saw that? Right at about 50 volts. And that was for the white GDT. So this one's like just barely good enough. Here's the catch. This is supposed to be a 90 volt GDT, so let's actually do one other thing. I'm going to take this, and we're going to divide by 0.707. My 90 volt GDT is actually a 70 volt GDT. That's I'm not 100% happy about that. Let's just make it a little prettier. There you go, 70.7 volt GDT. So it'll probably work for 100 watts. Not sure. Let's test this one. This one is labeled 90 volts as well. Now this one, the other one was made by, I don't know, some Chinese company. This is made by TDK, the people who used to make the cassette tapes. That TDK. There we go. Well, let's try this and see what we get. Yeah, that was probably more like 70. I don't know, we can try it again and see what we get. I must have tripped something. Yes, I overloaded. There we go, let's try that again. Trying to do this really slowly. So 50, 60, 69, 70, let's call it 70 volts. 70 volts here. Hey, that works out to, and it's probably not quite 70 because this is not the best voltmeter. I suppose I could hook up a better voltmeter to it, but that's more like an actual 90 volt GDT. So what this means is, let's pull this guy out. Oop, did get a little warm. If I unscrew this guy, by the way, I already did it on this side. I just hadn't tested. I thought you'd be interested in this. I'll dump out this white GDT, take the blue one. By the way, just if you're curious what's inside there, it's literally just a hole. You can see the brass center conductor. I plop this in so it's touching the brass center conductor. Now I put this cap on, which touches the other side of the GDT. And that's what makes the connection. Or shall I say, doesn't make the connection until we get to a high enough voltage. There we go. So, point being, well, a couple things to keep track of here. Let's pull these out just so that they're not in your way. A lightning arrestor, again, is probably a bit of a misnomer. Really what this is a static buildup arrestor, or surge protector is really what it is. And the way to specify one is to take whatever wattage you are going to be running, let's actually show it on the screen here. Whoa. There we go. Whatever wattage you're going to be running out of your radio, peak wattage, and figure out from there what voltage the GDT should be able to handle. And, well, ideally, you wouldn't have to calculate and test and all of that and buy new ones from your local electronic supplier. But it's something to check out. And by the way, if you run your radio with too small of a GDT, you're going to cook these, and then you're going to kill your static discharge protection. One last thing I want to play with here. VHF, UHF, I only do 50 watts. So how does that change? Well, what this tells me is my peak voltage would have to be 50 volts, and therefore my RMS voltage that I measure up here should be only 35. So actually, these little white guys are fine for VHF, UHF for my application, because I only run 50 watts VHF, UHF. But for my 100 watt HF station, maybe these are just barely okay. I don't know. I'd rather have a bit of that buffer built in, so I'm not accidentally arcing these and destroying them. So, hopefully you found this interesting. Fun little foray into how to do lightning protection safely. And by the way, it's not lightning protection. It's more static discharge protection. If you got questions or comments or whatever, leave them in the comments below. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. 73.